heading back to the Visual Studio Code. Yes.
Yeah, just an overview. What some scripts that you think people will be interested in, especially when Meraki customers or what have you on here.
Yeah, so that Meraki location scanning Python, the captive portal ties into the wireless infrastructure as well. And we have a simulator for that as well, and a learning lab that walks you through all of those things. So if I bop back to the learning labs, wherever I had them, where did I have them? Goodness, I lost my spot. Oh. The Meraki External Captive Portal Learning Lab under developer.cisco.com/learning modules getting started with Meraki. We also have...
Well, I see one down here now, the Meraki Wireless Health.
Wireless Health.
What information does that provide you?
So this provides us with the Learning Lab tells you how to make the API calls, but if we actually go back to the documentation, scroll down to Wireless Health at the bottom here, we can get things like connectivity info for the network. So connection stats around associations, authentications, any DHCP deployments, DNS problems and successes. That's not as interesting as potentially things like latency info. So we can get latency info for the packet sizes that are being sent. We can also see things like connection failures, all failed client connections, and where they failed against which device. So we can start to actually build out monitoring applications with things like this that allow us to identify potentially one of our APs is going badly, or it's in a weird spot where people are, even though the AP is working fine, people are having trouble connecting, or we have a lot of people trying to hit the network that aren't authorized to do so. So that's weird in that one spot. Being able to take that information and then turn into something consumable is then what we're trying to help people do. So that's the stuff you can get from the wireless health APIs. Thank you for calling that out. I wanted to show it, and amongst everything else, I completely forgot about it.
So I'm looking at this, right? And I know that everyone, it's a learning lab, right? So you can actually go through the lab, learn how to execute the script and what have you. However, just keep in mind that, part of that crawl, actually it's not crawl, right? It's walk, run, fly. Part of that walking is actually you have a lot of referenceable scripts that you can use at your own whim. So we're not telling you, hey, go ahead and get this Python, learn Python in 30 days and just get out and spit out scripts. No, we get familiar with these scripts in DevNet learning labs. And then the next step is to start using these in your own labs, right? I'm not going to tell you production because you'll blame me when you get fired. But no, you can actually use these in your lab environments. This is how you become that DevNet programmer, if you will. So,
yeah, and that actually leads me into a good place to kind of culminate in all this effort here is the Cisco Code Exchange. We'll look specifically at Meraki because I know we don't have DNA spaces in here yet. But for some of those things that we saw before in GitHub, we can search for the Meraki code. The automation scripts is kind of a big, giant library of scripts that allow us to do a lot of those network infrastructure things. If we're talking specifically about wireless location, there's a JavaScript application for indoor location. We could do a Splash captive portal with group policies in Node.js. Here's a location scanning service that goes into a AWS Firebase database. Here's my location scanning simulator. So all of these things exist in a place where you can consume them. They're all open source. They're all.
Wait a minute. Go back. I didn't mean to glance over that. What is that? What is that Alexa lab?
Let's see here. Where was that? Oh, Alexa Skill.
Yeah.
So this is tied to a learning lab as well. So this piece of code allows you to deploy an Alexa skill to. We should probably update it to knock Tropo off here. But deploy an Alexa skill so that you can do things like turn on your guest Wi-Fi and set the password. You can interact with voice commands to make changes to your network. We do similar demos of this for not just Meraki, but also John McDonough, one of my colleagues, John McDonough, has a video on YouTube somewhere that covers the same thing for deploying servers on UCS, so or even UCS Manager. So those can be kind of fun things to walk through. But we have a learning lab for that. I keep losing my spot where the learning labs are. Where are you, learning labs? Oh, there we go. Back in that getting started with Meraki module, at the end there is a lab that will walk you through using Alexa to configure your Meraki guest network, and it'll pull down the code from that code repository. Let's see. Yeah. And then the final thing I want to talk about. Sorry. So now the code exchange is the raw kind of GitHub repos. So you kind of got to be knowing what you're looking for as far as the application is concerned. So I want to do something to do this. We've kind of abstracted that a little bit for you in the ecosystem exchange, or sorry, not ecosystem exchange, network automation exchange. And we tie these to use cases. And we can split these out depending on if it's walk, run, fly, if it's under a specific scenario, if it's day 0 activities, day 1, day 2, day n, what domain, and then finally product. And I'm just going to go product since we're kind of sitting in that space. Now, all of these are network automation specific activities. You might see some wireless in here soon, but not yet. But what we're working on is moving anything that sits within this code exchange that has been applied at a customer or has been worked out in a lab, and we have kind of a field testimonial towards it into this automation exchange to say, all right, these things do work. They kind of fit this use case. You might need to adjust them accordingly for your own needs, but this is the baseline for it. And then move forward with that code baseline. So
can I ask you a question based on what you just said, right? The relationship between the code exchange and the automation exchange. Is there a relationship, or you're just given a scenario? For example, people submit code to the code exchange, right? Does the code exchange kind of become the starting ground to building out the automation exchange?
Exactly.
Okay. Great.
So the automation exchange gives you the use case and a narrative around how it's used. The code exchange is the code, I guess. Is that fair?
That is exactly the delineation. Yes.
Well, it kind of goes back to the other session, the other video that we did, Darren, where I said you want to start off at that micro level and then move to that macro, right? That automation is that macro. The code exchange, submit your one-offs, your little micro, this is how you configure an AP or whatever. Then the bigger picture is over. That's beautiful. Okay. And I can see organizations moving to that model too. It was like, how do you make that leap from, going in, learning DevNet from a micro level to automation? Well, this kind of moves you through that, right?
Sure.
That is exactly it. So what we recommend to people going through all of this process is check out the hubs, the jumping off points. So, if we're talking about wireless in general, that would be developer.cisco.com/wireless. If we want to dig into Meraki specifically, we can go to Meraki. Kind of bump around here a little bit and then move into those learning labs, wherever if
you can find
have them. move into the learning labs, because that will give you the hands-on experience. Now, the learning labs, there's one kind of area that I didn't mention. The learning labs then tie into our sandbox environment, which I kept clicking into. This is actually an example of our sandbox environment with DNA Center. But if I go to just DevNet Sandbox, We have 73 and variations of sandbox environments for developers to interact with. And this covers a whole host of product lines and platforms. We are looking today at Meraki, but so if you head down to the Meraki section, these are in alphabetical order, thank goodness. There's 3 flavors of that you can get your hands dirty with. And then we had a CMX sandbox, but unfortunately had to pull it. We don't have a DNA Spaces one yet, but keep your eyes peeled for that. And then the other thing that we have, I'm trying to remember what we named it, Catalyst 9800. We do have a wireless LAN controller sandbox that allows you to test out telemetry streaming from the wireless LAN controller, which I did not get into in this conversation, and I could probably spend another 45 minutes talking about that. But that's probably a good to be saved for the DNA conversation as well.
A question for you, Matt. So I'm an engineer, and I'm looking to start working and improving my DevNet skills, if you will. Most of this equipment, for example, the 9800, right? So you can sign up and you can get a session to use a VDI to be able to do your own labs. But what if I wanted to do this for my laptop, right? My own personal laptop or what have you. Most of these, are they reachable from the external, this sandbox? Or
yeah, the sandbox is always reachable from the external. So you don't need to be inside Cisco. What will happen in a lot of instances, now this isn't always on, but ones that are reserved, what they will do is they will create VPN credentials for you to then access a closed environment for that particular topology. So for example, the one that we were looking at before, this DNA center, there are always on ones that have limited capabilities as far as what you can do. You can usually only make GET requests. You can't change any information. But if you go through the reservation, you can access labs that you can do whatever you want to, because we'll basically blow them away and build them back up when you're done. So this one in particular has DNA Center. There's an ASSR or an ASR 1001 and a couple of Catalyst devices in that particular area, and they actually tie into VMs as well as hosts. So, it's not a gigantic network that you're dealing with, but you're dealing with all of the potential devices that could be existing within that space, although I would argue this is missing a wireless LAN controller and some access points. But that being said, it still allows you to start playing with those APIs, see what it means to set up network intent type API calls, go through the command runner APIs for DNA Center. I'm going down a rat hole with DNA Center. I don't want to. But what I wanted to do was show that not just for wireless, but for our whole, not our whole portfolio either, but a lot of our portfolio, we have these environments that exist in a lab space that you can kick the tires on, that you can develop these applications on first before exposing your lab environment to them. If you don't have the lab environment, we have seen scenarios where people have done their full development in our sandbox and then done some smoke testing in production and then just push forward with production. So those kinds of work processes can be done with this, and it's always on, currently always free. And that's what the learning labs then leverage for any of the hands-on aspects of the tutorial process is the sandbox environment. And then once we get to the sandbox, or once we get through those tutorials and understand what those integration points are, what those APIs are, then we go into code exchange. All right, someone already did something that I want to do. I'm going to stand on their shoulders.
Exactly.
They spend time on, maybe I need to make a tweak here and there. But I always recommend to people, don't start a product from scratch. Either check it out, look for it in GitHub, search. But for Cisco specific things, we're curating these on Code Exchange and Automation Exchange.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
To see to see those examples about how you take the API calls, you turn them into code snippets, and then work those up into proper use cases. I think that's been really interesting. And the fact that you can, who knew something as simple as a wireless network could be useful in ways that are kind of unrelated as well. The location sensing and that sort of stuff. You're pulling additional use out of the data that's in ways that you perhaps wouldn't have thought of before as well. And I think it does open up new use cases, and I guess you can take that information and use it with other things in order to do augmented reality stuff or whatever, as you've already mentioned. So it looks good to me.
Yeah, I mentioned a use case that's not available yet, but you can see, and this is where everyone should be, thinking about the possibilities of what can be done and if it can be done. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to be able to do that in the near future, right? This is only getting big.
Yep.
Yeah, and these things are being added on and improved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where we were yesterday is far behind where we are today and where we will be tomorrow.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Yeah, I'm spinning. I've got a bunch of tabs up on the browser to the side, learning all new phrases. Django, Flask. He said it's a choice of web frameworks. Oh, I don't know how many web frameworks there are. 40 of the things, something like that. It's a whole new world, which is both scary and exciting, and all those various emotions, really. So I'm looking forward to going back a bit. Let's start at the beginning and just step through things slowly.
But that's the point of this,
that's
right?
The point. We're in this journey together.
Yeah, that's what we need
together. So you're gonna have your shot at showing your mastery skills in DevNet pretty soon. So
pick something easy, something that you do, it's repetitive, and just hack through it, man. It's easy. It'll come. Doesn't have to be beautiful. Just needs to work, right? You'll perfect the skill and you'll get better. Your coding will become more optimized, and heck, there's a wealth of resources right on DevNet. Almost everything you can think of: Cisco HCI, wireless, firewall. So ASA has an API add-on. There's so much stuff that you can get, and if you just think of it in terms of what's the stuff that just bogs me down doing that I can script, and you'll start to figure out uses for it, and before you know it, you'll be pretty darn good at it too. So I think that's it for me.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, on this call, and you know what, I'm going to be kind of conservative with this number, right? Because there are old folks on this call. There's over 100 years of experience, right? And
that's just John Gibbs.
There's more than 100 years of experience on this call, I'll tell you.
And at what time in any profession can you have that many years of experience and everyone still be on the same playing ground? I mean, we're in the same level pretty much in trying to gain exposure to DevNet. And I think that's a great period to be. And now if you're in the same mode next year, you haven't been watching our videos and you haven't been practicing DevNet. But right now, we're all starting at the same point, and it's great.
I'll break it down for you, Derek. This is it, and it's simple. If you're a CCIE, you were faced with a challenge, a big challenge, to gain that expert level of knowledge. At one point, you didn't know anything. You started someplace. You're back there. It's that simple. And if you're going to run away from it, you're going to have a short career. It's that simple.
This is
the skill that you need for the future.
Sure.
Regardless of turf wars or whatever, people trying to figure things out, you need to be able to programmatically instantiate change against the network. And if you can't do that, you're going to be stuck in a hop by hop approach, and you're going to get nowhere.
Well,
so
let's say something.
It's just going to get automated around you.
It's
20 years
relevant.
ago,
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
20 years ago, I had two commands that I got tired of, right? This is 20 years ago. Show IP route and show IPX servers. Okay. Now, IPX servers has gone. Nobody's doing that anymore. But, now it's my chance to phase out show IP route. I mean, just.
Yeah. So you built an alias, right? You built an alias to do it, right? Because you got tired of typing the command. You built an alias to do it.
Well, now
there it is.
API, right? So
yeah, now you can just pull it simple.
John Gibbs, last but not least.
Yeah, so I just think the applications are pretty much limitless. The what Matt showed us today is, pretty mind blowing in itself. But it's like we were saying earlier: walk, run, fly. You start off slowly, start building up that experience, and then we'll all be experts at the end of it. So I'm loving the experience and looking forward to really diving into it now.
Great. Glad you can join us this morning, John. So
Awesome.
Hey, Matt.
Yesterday there, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's yesterday or tomorrow?
Or tomorrow.
It's 11 a.m.
Tomorrow.
Or 11.
Don't start on the time zones again. Please don't start on the time zones again.
Hey guys,
What I want to know is,
I want to say a special thank you to Matt.
did
right?
somebody
Because,
do with my phone?
Matt is actually the guy who got us started on this journey, and he's actually gave us a lot of information, and he's very enthusiastic about it. So Matt is really a valuable resource out there, and hey, you guys reach out to Matt on LinkedIn. I'm sure he would enjoy the traffic.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
thanks
absolutely.
for that, Matt.
Yeah,
awesome
thanks for
always.
that, Matt.
all right.
All right,
My
guys.
pleasure.
Thanks. All right,
Okay,
guys.
have a good weekend, guys.
All right.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. Now, this might be a sore subject for some of us who've worked with Meraki. So, can I get deeper metrics, analytics from the hardware infrastructure than I can through the GUI, or what's allowed to be seen from the GUI?
So I'm going to knee-jerk reaction say no.
Okay.
They tend to only. So with a lot of products that you're going to come across, unless it was an API first product, you are not going to see anything extra that you don't see in the dashboard at some point. Meraki, though they are a forerunner for putting out APIs and providing a good developer API interaction, I still think it was added on afterwards.
Okay.
All right. So, just things like CPU and memory utilization on devices, as an example.
Yeah, I don't even think that's available right now. So, but we can look at the docs and look. Let's see.
No, but I mean that's something that's not available in the GUI, and it's kind of very under the covers, and it's something that from a troubleshooting perspective that a lot of engineers have a problem not being able to see.
Yeah, and so I can say that those kinds of suggestions do come into the team that either exposes that on the dashboard or exposes it through the API. And I think that one in particular I saw come across at least as a request. Now, if they decide to open that up, I don't know. But as far as, and I understand the question, and unfortunately the answer is depends on the product, and for Meraki specifically, they don't expose anything for the dashboard API that is not already on the dashboard.
Gotcha.